Eagles. Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Monday or Tuesday morning, edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen. A little February 3rd edition for all you guys. I forgot to mention to you yesterday. It's February. We are out of January. Super Bowl month is here. Super Bowl weekend this upcoming week for the final wrap on the NFL season. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday morning, my friend?
Doing well. I saw Super Bowl Media Day. That looked like a rinky-dink affair. I don't know if you saw it. What the hell is going on there?
John, I don't think there's any buzz around this Super Bowl, man. I don't know what it is, but not a whole lot.
Well, the buzz you can talk about, but that doesn't explain why the NFL did that the way they did it after the way they have been doing it, which is, arenas, and it was in the Superdome last year. And now they just roll up a bunch of podiums in the San Jose Convention Center with no fans. It's like, what are we in COVID days? What are we doing here? But anyway, that's my first take of the day. Well, I stopped doing my pet peeves of the day. What are they doing? Anyway, but
the summer, we got to bring back the pet peeves for the offseason. I feel like the offseason pet peeves might be better than the regular season pet peeves.
Well, you usually get them, whether I
prod you or not.
whether we label it or not, you usually get them.
All right, good stuff, John. Where are we, man, on Eagle Land? I think there's still a little bit of cautious optimism about Vic Fangio, but all indications do seem that the scare is in the rearview mirror. Do you think Vic is going to return? I mean, let's just start with that today, because I do think a lot of people still have that on their mind. Is Vic coming back? Is he not? Les Bowen wrote an article. We'll have Les on today about Vic Fangio's potential retirement, which is always good to bring Les on. So we'll hear him. Is Vic Fangio coming back, John, next year?
Yes, I believe. Certainly the Eagles are operating with the belief he's coming back. So that's how I'll describe it.
Okay.
I went to Raw last night, and I happened to catch up with somebody just by chance. And, they're certainly operating. And everybody who watches that show is going to think it's Dom. It's not Dom because he was there. But they are operating with the belief that he will be back. Now, again, I've said it since he got here almost. I talk about his age. I don't want. It's not ageism related. It's just the reality of, look, he was thinking about retiring before he got here. This was his last stop. He said it. He's clearly stated he's not going anywhere else. He knows the end is near. And it's become a sort of Jason Kelsey coaching thing where, he goes year by year, and hopefully, they've talked him back to coming back. But I leave the door slightly ajar because he might, on the eve of training camp or something like, do I really want to go through this again? I don't think he'd do that, but when you get to that stage of life, things are different. You can't act like he's Sean Manion, 33 years old. I mean, it's a grind.
Yeah, man, he's 68 or 67 years old. If he wants to kick his feet up and watch the Phillies, or do what he's got to do, make his signature meals and go to the Penrose Diner, then so be it. But
Palladium, correct, the Palladium.
There you go, the Palladium. I can't blame him, but it will be a big loss, John. And it is It is funny though, because we talk about the offensive coordinator a lot on this show, and it's not to delegitimize what Vic does, but we talk about how it's so much more players than coach on the coordinator, and that's one of your big things that you talk about, because I think you're right that
Vic talks about it as well. I'll just jump.
I agree. I'm just saying, I think the vast majority of consumers, even like fans, that when I talk to them, when I'm just out talking to anybody, they blame it all on Kevin Patullo. I don't know if it's because it's the easiest thing to do, and I know you harp on that, but Boy, losing Vic would be tough, man. I mean, losing Vic would be a tough. He's the
Well, I
architect.
do. I mean, I'm not going to compare those two. There are different levels, and that's one of my pet peeves and frustrations. Is I always say talent over. The best example would be, I think if you take the emotion out of it, Belichick or Brady. Well, they're both great. It's astonishing that both Hall of Fame, but I'll take Brady. I'd love to have them both, but if you force me to choose, I'm taking Brady. I'm a player. They can't go on the field.
Right.
To me, it shouldn't even be a conversation. And Vic would be the first person to tell you that. The first person. But that said, when you measure him against his peers, like he's way ahead. If you measure Kevin Patullo against his peers, he's just, probably just a guy. Vic's, I brought it up since he's gotten here. He's the guy. He's the defense. Like everybody hires Shanahan, McVay guys on offense. The whole league is Shanahan, McVay guys. He's that on defense. And he has been for about 12, 13 years now. It's been a long time. He's the guy on defense. So it would be a major loss, but he can't make, he can't make water into wine. I mean, if you don't have talent, you can have the best coach. And again, instead of winning 4 games, you might win 6 or 7. But you're not going to be a Super Bowl contender. You need players. I can't even believe people push back, and a lot of people push back on me with that.
No, I think you're right about that. But the question then would become, John, is, well, how much does the loss of Fangio matter? If they were a real, and obviously it matters, but I'm talking about degree here. They're a great defense, and they have a lot of great talent. Vic has, in my opinion, made them and gotten the most out of them, obviously, the last 2 seasons. How much of a drop-off would be expected there if Vic wasn't here? Now, I think he's going to return, so all is good. But just trying to measure the degree in which Vic Fangio improves that defense as the architect of the unit.
Well, they won 11 games last year, and obviously it's a complimentary game. But, if you have I'll describe it. If you have an 11-win defense, and everybody would argue they had a better than 11-win defense because most of the issues were on the other side of the ball. But for sake of argument, if you have an 11-win defense, you're probably going to win 8 or 9 without them. They're just going to go down. Question is, can you limit it? And they have enough talent where I think they could limit it. And part of the reasons, you're whenever he does leave, and I don't think it's going to be this year, as I said. If it's next year, you're lucky if you're that he's gotten these players, the young players, the Quinyon Mitchells, the Cooper DeJeans, etc., in a position to thrive, and he's already developed them for you. So that's a very positive situation to walk into. But to me, the complicated aspect is, how does Howie operate? Knowing, but from when I say that, because it's now more in the public's mind, he's probably always had that mindset. Like He knew from the day he got here, it wasn't a long-term thing. So it might not change at all. But Nakobe Dean is probably the best example of this. Nakobe loves, Vic loves Nakobe. And we always talk, how do you keep him? How do you keep him if you're the Eagles? Well, I don't think they can keep him. And just, understanding, well, Vic's not going to be here forever, so the next guy's not going to be in love with him. So that probably leans, Howie more in a different direction. So little things like that.
Yeah, it's a good point, though. A guy like Nakobe Dean is a great example of, if Vic is here or younger, maybe you try and keep him around because Vic likes the player, but because he's leaving, we'll change your direction potentially with it. John, what do you think What do you think the succession plan would look like? Do you think it would be in-house Clint Hurt? Do you think maybe they would try and bring somebody in to prepare him for that? Do you think they would wait till next year and look for a veteran guy, out on the market, and try and go maybe not as old as Vic, but maybe a more established veteran presence because that's worked out so well? What kind of things do you think the Eagles would look to do to replace Vic if Vic is returning this year, which it looks like he's going to? I would assume it's going to be his last year. There's no guarantee on that. I don't think he said that publicly, but I would assume that would be my expectation. What do you think the Eagles' succession plan will look like with Vic Fangio?
Well, I think you kind of got an intimation of how it would go from Jimmy's report, Jimmy Kempski's report. They wanted to talk to Jonathan Gannon, wanted to explore Jim Swartz.
Right.
And then if you look at the offensive side of the ball, well, they wanted Mike McDaniel. They wanted Brian Daboll. So I think it's very similar. It's you go for the home run, and if you don't get the home run, you try to uncover the next young ascending coach. I think that's the way they've approached it in the past and the way they'll continue to approach it. So I don't think it's about grooming somebody on the staff right now. I think it would be very similar to what happened on offense this year. Depending on, and who knows if Nick is back, but, because I think he and Jalen, the urgency has increased with them that's just the nature of the NFL. But just when it comes to coaching staff and interviews, I think that seems to be their approach. If they think they're still a Super Bowl contender, who knows? They might have a bad season. A lot of things could happen this offseason. This has been a really consistent organization, 5 consecutive playoff appearances. You know the numbers. What if they have to move on from AJ Brown? What if Lane Johnson retires? Right there. That's a Hall of Famer and a guy who's at a Hall of Fame trajectory. I mean, that you talk about succession plans. Those are the more important succession plans. Like, how do you replace that?
Yeah, right.
And you can make Howie's on quite a run of making good decisions. Certainly drafting. They took a year off from free agency, essentially. But he's on quite a run. You got to hit like right away. You got to find a right tackle and a wide receiver 1. Maybe Devontae can do it, wide receiver 2, whatever. You got to find a meaningful contributor at a very high level. And that doesn't even bring up Dallas Goedert. And if you're moving on from all these people, that means you're most likely getting it from the draft, but you can't draft every stinking position.
Yeah, no, that's not going to work.
So a lot of things to.
So the much more pressing need to you still remains the personnel and figuring out.
That will never change. Never.
I just didn't know when you have a degree, like when you reach the degree like Vic, where he is as good of a coach as he is, and he makes the difference that he makes, how much does the scale tip? So that's what I was trying to unlock. But I do follow your logic there. Just sticking on the DC, John, how much of an option do you think Clint Hurt would be? For those who don't know, Clint Hurt was a defensive coordinator before he came to Philly in Seattle with Pete Carroll. I don't know if anybody remembers that time. It wasn't great. He didn't have great defenses there. Now, a lot of people put it on Pete at the time because, Clint didn't necessarily have the Legion of Boom, but he did have he was with Pete Carroll in Seattle, and the defense just got worse under Clint Hurt for his 2 years as DC. But I remain optimistic that Clint Hurt would be a good defensive coordinator. I think he's done a good job with the defensive line from what I can tell. Do you think Clint Hurt would be an option, John?
Well, I think internally, yeah, he'd be the top option. But again, I think they already highlighted that they would have been looking outside if he did retire.
Right.
So, not to say they wouldn't have come back and land on him, because I don't think Gannon would have came back, especially if he had the Green Bay offer. So Jim Schwartz is under contract, so it's easy to talk about these guys, but it's not easy to get them. So if it's similar to Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll on the defensive side, and you don't get them, well, you gotta pivot. And there's plenty of young, good ascending defensive coaches around the league. I'm sure it would have been similar to what they did on offense, and they would have talked to a bunch of them. But I do think, because of the way the offense, the difference is they can talk to guys on defense. They weren't going to consider anybody here to be elevated because of the way the offense performed. So you didn't have any in-house candidates here because of the way things went on the offensive side. That's the only difference. You would have, maybe you want to talk to Clint Hurt. Maybe you want to even talk to Bobby King. Maybe you want to talk to Joe Casper as one of those ascending young defensive minds. They could do that on the defensive side of the ball. But, yeah, of all those guys, the favorite would certainly be Clint Hurt, who was just the head coach at the Senior Bowl. So, he interviewed for, I think, Miami's defensive coordinator job, which – they have a defensive-minded head coach now with Jeff Hafley, but still, that'd be a step up. So, I mean, he's on the radar to begin with, and he's a former defensive coordinator as well, and before that, assistant head coach. So, he would be the clear in-house front runner, I would say.
How do you view his time in Seattle? I read a couple of things about it. It didn't seem like it went very well. It wasn't all on Clint, but, it wasn't a very good defense when he was the DC.
Well, like you said, he didn't have the Legion of Boom. Same thing, man. You're rebuilding from a great defense that you had all that year, and you don't have the same level of talent. So, that's what happens. I mean, Vic's got a long history in this league. Very long, impressive history in coaching. 40 years. But, since he's been a defensive coordinator, even a very long history since he broke through, and he hasn't always had great defenses. Always been a great coach. But you got to go back to 1995 when he became a defensive coordinator.
Woo, man, that's a long time ago.
And he didn't, that whole string, he didn't have good defenses all the time. And it jockeys before. And like I said, for all his greatness, he's got one number one defense over that time frame. One. Philadelphia was lucky enough to see it. And he's got a bunch of top fives. He's got a bunch of top tens, which really tells you how good he is. But you're at the mercy of a lot of things when you're a coach. Number one is personnel. You need a certain level of personnel to perform at a very high level. And he's done it in San Francisco. He's done it in Chicago. He's done it in Denver. Did it in Miami, even though people don't realize it. And he's done it with the Eagles. Those are his last, since he really took off in San Francisco. And he's been pretty damn consistent. But, he's also he'll tell you about Patrick. If you let Vic talk, he'll tell you about Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman. He'll tell you about Khalil Mack. A lot of freaking good players helping him with those good defenses.
That's right. John, do you think this is going to be his last year?
Yeah, I do. But, if he coaches this year, which I said my understanding is he will. He'll be 68 going on 69 next year. He's going to coach till 70. I don't think so. I think this might be it.
Yep, I agree with you. I think this will be it for Vic Fangio. We will see what that means for the Philadelphia Eagles organization, who have become a very defensive football team. No complaints about that, but when you lose Vic Fangio, what does that mean for how good the team is? Hey, offense! Hey, offense, I need you to wake up, offense. That's what we're going to need, John. That's what it seems to me. The offense is going to have to start delivering the goods, my friend. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here this morning. Good to see everybody in the chat. If you're listening after the fact, don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to drop your comments down below. And if you're listening on the podcast, we appreciate you listening on the podcast. Leave us a review. Drop us a comment over there, and we appreciate everybody listening as well. Johnny Mac, segment number 2. Let's go right into it as we just came on the off-ramp of the Fangio discussion, and I call for the offense. Speaking of the offense, Sean Manion is in. Josh Grizzard is in. What is this staff going to look like, John? Let's run through each person one by one. You got Jeff Stoutland as the offensive line and run game coordinator. You got Scott Loeffler as the quarterbacks coach. You got Jason Michael as the tight ends coach. You got Aaron Moorhead as the wide receiver coach. You got Jamal Singleton as the running backs coach, and several other offensive coaches. Whenever there's a change at the offensive coordinator, none of these jobs are safe. It's not typical for there to always be continuity at all those spots when you change the OC. John, what are you thinking, man? Let's go one by one here. I think Stoutland feels obvious, but with some of the reports in the last, not only this year, but the last couple of years, with Cliff wanting a new running game coordinator, you heard some of that as well. Again, this year, do you believe Jeff Stoutland will be back, John, with Sean Manion on the staff?
Yeah, I think it's up in the air, and I think I mentioned that yesterday. I think that's a two-sided discussion. Does Jeff want to come back under a new offensive coordinator? He's getting older as well. So I think he might. I also said yesterday, and the Eagles will never fire Jeff Stoutland. Never fire Jeff Stoutland. So any type of exit would be, probably, whether it's true or not, will probably be explained as him walking away. So from that standpoint, but how much autonomy do they want to give a 33-year-old kid? How many people does Sean Manion know to hire to be comfortable? There's so many questions to this. Now I go back to Kellen Moore, but the difference there was Kellen had been doing it for a while, 5 years as an offensive coordinator in the league. So he had a bigger Rolodex, so to speak, of coaching contacts and people he coached with. And they only gave him 2 coaches, 2 assistants. And that was coming off a bad year as well, even though it was more defensive collapse than offensive collapse. It wasn't really, even though it was pretty obvious to me, it wasn't really framed that way. Like the offense took a lot of heat as well because people just don't like the style of offense they play, and nobody can figure they don't like the style, which I have no problem with. It's not the most aesthetic brand of offense, but they only gave him two assistants. That's it. And the same guys are here that Nick trusts and likes. So I do think they're going to give him a couple guys, but I don't think it's going to be as drastic as some people think it might have been at one point. If, say, Mike McDaniel came in or even Brian Daboll came in, then it might have been more drastic. I don't think it's going to be quite as drastic. So the question is, where do you find those 2 spots? The 2 most obvious to me would be Stout from the standpoint of if he doesn't want to continue, number one. And then Loeffler, because the old adage, which I also said, last guy in, first guy out, sort of the business world. And he's not been here, whereas the other guys have been here for a long, sustained period of time. The other one is Jamal Singleton, only because if you truly, truly want to change to more of a McDaniel, Shanahan type running style,
which is much different than what we do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's overrated. It's different, but like I always say about the run game, there's just only so many fucking things you can do.
I mean, but they do use their backs in like ways that we've seen kind of Saquon struggle with. I mean, to be honest.
Well, Saquon's area. Well, I think if you look at, first of all, the run game quarter is not involved with like using Christian McCaffrey in the passing game. I mean, it's just about the running game specifically. So I'm not talking about the pass protection and the receiving issues. That's off. I'm talking about simply, devising a running scheme. And I talk about it all the time. Well, yeah, right. They run more outside zone. Okay. Is it really that difficult to go from inside zone to outside zone? I think people make it out to be. Maybe you have to get the offensive line used to it. That's the bigger hurdle. And the Eagles have been a power running team, a lot of duo, a lot of pin and pull, a lot of physicality. Do you want them to be an outside zone team? Like, I don't think people think this stuff through. Like, you want Landon Dickerson moving more, or you want him being powerful? People should be very careful what they wish for.
It's a good point. So Jamal Singleton, an interesting name to bring up there with Jeff Stoutland as well. And then, John, you keep rolling through that staff. Aaron Moorhead, a guy who's been here for a long time. He was here the final year of Doug Peterson and returned, with Nick Sirianni's staff coming in. You tell the story often. Nick turned out to like Aaron Moorhead, and here we are. And I do think we've had, maybe the best duo of wide receiver in Eagles history. I don't know if that's because of Aaron Moorhead, but it's because you got great players. After that, I don't see much there. Do you expect Aaron Moorhead to be back on this staff?
Yeah, Aaron's not guaranteed to be back by any stretch of the imagination. Sometimes that's just a shelf life thing too. I should have brought that up as well. Sometimes that's what this league is. I mean, guys, you for whatever reason, you want a new voice. And sometimes it's just as simple as that. So you have guys who, their contracts run out. You don't bring them back. And you want to just change the voice. So they're all at risk at some point, but they're not going to change the whole group of them, because I don't think, again, when you hire a 33-year-old guy, I don't think he's got a whole staff that he's wants to bring in. So I think it would have changed a lot if they got a more veteran guy. Then I think you would have seen more wholesale changes. I think you're going to see some changes, but not as many as maybe you would have seen. But everybody's at risk because they've been here for so long.
Right. Now, John, I don't want to get back into what we were debating yesterday, but I do think it's relevant, and I want to re-bring it up to you and see if I can word it better. I don't want to fight over the semantics on it, but I really don't think this is a great setup. I know you said push back on the word, but the experience, yes, but it's also the setup. I mean, you have a pressurized environment in Philly. You have exceedingly high expectations, not only from the fan base, but from the owner. And now you have a young coordinator who he might not be a shrinking violet, and it might not phase him, but you have a bunch of coaches around him who have significantly more experience, and he's the one in the middle, as the proverbial head of the snake. Like, I wonder if something goes wrong, if they lose 2 games, if they go, if they start 2-2, if it doesn't look like everybody from top to bottom wants it to look, how hard is that on Sean Manion to handle as a 33-year-old OC with no pedigree, no play calling, no connections, and frankly, not a whole lot of coaching experience? I think it's a tough spot.
Yeah, well, and that's what we're talking about. I mean, it all comes down to experience, and it's real. I mean, I brought up the Kwesi example yesterday because the Vikings fired Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, general manager. One of the reasons why is because, the people under him grew up in a different environment, have more experience, and the natural assumption is, what the fuck? Why am I listening to this guy? He's making all these mistakes.
Right.
And there's no cachet to overcome that because he's got nothing to point to. I think it's unfair. Don't get me wrong. But the reality is when you hire a 33-year-old guy and say, essentially, you're Jeff Stoutland's boss. I mean, I mean, look, he would never say it publicly, but if things start going wrong, like you just said, what the fuck do you think Jeff Stoutland's going to think? It's like, look at my resume.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, that's a huge part of it too. Shit, even before they even play a game, John, isn't that a thought process?
I would think so.
How's this fucking 33-year-old guy who's never coached, going to tell me what to do? I don't know. That's the biggest.
I do think
I've said I like Sean Manion from the start. Now I don't. You pushed back me yesterday. Why? I don't know why. I just like him, but I don't know how successful.
I think everybody likes him. That's a positive because, for going back to his playing days, I talk about it all the time. You can find quotes from McVay and O'Connell talking about him as a future coach and things like that. And LaFleur, obviously. So I saw somebody at the Super Bowl was talking to Kubiak and he was raving about him. Obviously you're never going to say, oh no, this guy sucks. But, you also don't go overboard if you don't think somebody is at that level. So I do think there's a lot of natural coaching talent, for a lack of a better term. There's a lot of natural, he played quarterback for a long time, which is a position that demands leadership by its very nature. He's 6'6", which is not, when 6'6" people enter a room, they have a fucking presence. I mean, it's not a big thing, but it's a thing.
It's definitely a thing, 100%.
Always joke about the in presidential elections for a long time, the shorter guy always loses. It's simple as that. Doesn't make any sense, but I mean, it's just part of it. So, I think he's going to have a presence about him, and then you bring in the environment and the passion of the city and the expectations of the city. Yeah, a lot can go wrong here. This is a boom or bust pick. They swung for the fences. They're telling you, that was my first thought, and it remains my thought. They're telling you that this guy is a future star in the coaching profession. But if they swing and miss instead of hit that home run, he could be ugly. He could be ugly. Ugly. And like I said, he's going to get shit here. There's no escaping it. You can run down every coordinator since I've been here. They've all gotten shit. Death taxes and Eagles offensive coordinator getting shit.
It's true. It's true.
So how does he handle it? I think he'll be fine from all indications. I've yet to meet the guy, but I think he'll be fine. Just from the people that I talk, I think he gets it. I think he played, as I said, he played the position at a high level in college and stuck around at a very long time at the NFL level. So he knows, even if he was just adjacent to it with some of the quarterbacks, he like Jared Goff took a ton of crap early in his career, and he had a front row seat for that. Even Jordan Love takes quite a bit of crap when the Packers lose in the first round of the playoffs annually. Most recently. So you go from that level. He's seen it. He knows it. I'm sure he's equipped to handle it. But, yeah, I mean, there's going to be hiccups.
Yeah.
And does he persevere or doesn't he persevere?
Well, if they hired the guy, they should know that there's going to be hiccups, and he should have the ability to work through those. John, when he first got hired, I compared him to Kellen Moore because, Kellen Moore and him are similar in my eyes. I mean, they both were good college quarterbacks. They both spent, time in the NFL as backup quarterbacks, and then both quickly became coaches and ascended quickly, as Sean Manion has now proven to do in 2 years. And Kellen Moore did. John, this is Kellen Moore's first year. So Kellen Moore became an offensive coordinator his second year as a coach. All right, 2019. His first year, he was an offensive assistant in Dallas. His first year as an offensive coordinator, they were first in the NFL in total offense. Listen to this number, everybody. 431.5 yards per game for Kellen Moore's offense. Passing offense, Dak Prescott threw for 4,902. All right, they averaged 27.1 per game, sixth in the NFL. Ezekiel Elliott that year had 1,700 plus scrimmage yards. Amari Cooper had almost 1,200 receiving yards. Now, it's not a perfect comp. It's a completely different offense, completely different quarterback, completely different everything. So I'm not trying to compare. I'm just saying there is an instance of a type of guy like Sean having success as a coordinator. Maybe Sean's got the knack, John. Maybe he's got the Kellen Moore knack.
Well, maybe he's got the Kellen Moore knack, but what is the quote I always bring up? Comparison is the enemy of joy. Like if you're expecting that, you are not going to have a lot of joy. Look, bottom line is, I don't care what you think about Dak Prescott. He is a high volume thrower in this league.
He's a good quarterback. He's a high quality quarterback.
He is a good quarterback, but I'm talking about the people in Philadelphia that hate him because he's a quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. He is a high volume passer. Sean Manion is not coming into a situation with a high volume passer. I don't care about your sensitivities. I don't care if you think he can do it. There's no evidence that Jalen Hurts is going to be a high volume thrower. To want him to be a high volume thrower is silly to me. I think Sean Manning's a very good coach because very good coaches think he's going to be a very good coach. And if he's a very good coach, then he's going to build around the players he has. He's going to take advantage of the strengths of those players, not the strengths of Dak Prescott. Similar to what Kellen Moore did in Philadelphia versus what Kellen Moore did in Dallas. So I think people got to come to grips with their assessment of what they want. And if they really want it, then you should go in a different direction at quarterback, which they're not going to do.
Well, they don't need to do that. They've been successful.
No, they don't need to do that.
Yeah, they don't need to do that.
They've been more successful from a team perspective. Kellen Moore's biggest success came in Philadelphia. From a statistical perspective, his worst season came in Philadelphia. So what do you want? What do you want?
So what
I'm
does
not asking you, I'm asking fans in general.
So what does Sean Manion, what does he have to do then in order to extract the most? What do you think it looks like in a perfect pie in the sky world? And Sean Manion's the next head coach of whatever, take your pick team, but there'll probably be another 10 who fire their head coach next year. What does that look like? It's easy to say what it would look like in Dallas. You saw it, 4,900 yards, all these numbers, high volume passing, blah blah blah. What's it look like in Philly? I mean, what is the realistic expectation that? Forget the fans. What should the owner have? What should Nick Sirianni have? What should Jalen Hurts have? What should the expectation be of Sean Manion, given the setup of the offense and given the circumstance he's in?
Efficiency. You've already seen it. You've seen it in 22. You've seen it in 24. You've already seen it. You really saw it in 2023, but I digress. For the most part, again, compared to teams, everybody wants perfection. Doesn't exist. But they were very efficient for basically 3 consecutive seasons. for different reasons. Obviously, in 2024, it was more run game based. Maybe you have to maybe you have to pull back on the risk averse nature, take some more chances. Obviously, you got to get the offensive line back to where it was. Obviously, you have to get the running game back to where it was. A big part of that, you got to convince Jalen Hurts, hey, you're a triple threat. That's what he labeled himself. That's what I'd be banging into Jalen Hurts' head from day one. You're a triple threat. Use all three threats.
Yeah. What are the three threats?
Passing, running, mental aspect.
Okay. That's a funny phrase when you think about it. I mean, everybody's got the mental aspect. I guess, if you
some quarterbacks are better at getting people out of bad plays into good plays. That's what he's talking about.
Do you view that as one of Jalen's strengths?
Well, he's gotten much better at it. Yeah,
well, that's not what I asked. He's definitely gotten better at it.
I think he's fine. I don't think he's, I think he's above average.
All right.
I don't think he's top 5 and manipulate. But one of the reasons they go so low on the play clock is because Jalen's trying to do things. But so to me, it's about efficiency, and that's going to, because people want numbers. They want numbers. God, they always want numbers. They want numbers. And it's about efficiency, especially with this offense. Because you're not going to get what do you have? 4,900 yards passing? 4,900 yards? You're not getting that.
No, I don't think that. I think everybody knows that.
Do they?
I think so. I do. I don't think people are expecting that. I don't even think people are expecting 4K anymore.
I don't know why they'd want that. I don't know why they'd want 4K.
Well, I guess
you want, if you want a number, here's the number. 25. That's in a perfect world, which doesn't exist. That's how many times Jalen Hurts should be throwing the football.
25 per game. That's your number?
That's my number. Doesn't exist. Sometimes you have to throw it 40 times. Sometimes you throw it even less, depending on you're trying to win the game, as Nick always says. So, which is correct. But I'm talking about in a perfect world. In a perfect world. But everybody wants 4,500 yards. Everybody wants. And those teams never win, inevitably. Because to get to numbers like that, you're behind a lot, you're throwing a lot because you're behind a lot, or you're trying to catch up. Turnovers increase, obviously. Be careful what you wish for.
Well, I guess there's an element of, is there more than just football you're thinking about here? I don't know. It is an entertainment business. I guess that's a part of some of the fans' lives. It doesn't make it right. I'm not saying the Eagles should placate them.
I appreciate, Mike.
Part of why, people, I don't know. They carve out, how many hours of our life do we all carve out to watch freaking football? A bunch of dudes run around a field throwing a ball around. I don't know. Sometimes I think to myself, I carve out way too much time of my one life on earth to watch this stuff. But I do.
Well, we have a reason to do it. For fans, I get. Look, Mike Gill always talks. He's got I have never heard this from a fan. So that's why he says he's got a friend who's like, I don't care. I just want to be entertained. He's got a friend, which I respect. If that's what you want, I totally get it. I've never heard a Eagles fan speak to me that way. It's like they better win. Now, most of them they better win and it better look good, but they're more satiated by a win and it looking bad than a loss where it looks good on offense, I would say.
Well, is there also an element of people think that when it looks good, you increase your chances at success? Well, and they might be wrong, but I think
there's no evidence because generally what we're talking about is the passing game. I don't know why we even veil it. That's what we're talking about. And again, all those times
years though. I mean, I think most people would look at last season and say the reason that the Eagles didn't achieve what they wanted to achieve was because the offense was never good.
Yeah, but but if you boiled that down, why was what changed? Jalen Hurts had a career high in passing touchdowns. He was up in passing yards from the year prior when they won the Super Bowl, because he had to be, because the running game was inefficient. I mean, you've already seen it in a little dose because the passing game was uptick a little bit out of necessity because the efficiency wasn't there in the running game. Now you want to amp that up further? You better get the fucking running game fixed.
Well, do you think the running game struggles because the passing game has been largely, I don't want to say ineffective. That's not the right word, but, not as dangerous as you'd like it to be. So defenses maybe don't give it as much, attention as they could. And that makes things tougher in the run game.
Well, it's always a complementary thing. So, if you look at it defensively and, rush and cover and rush, blah, blah, blah. Right. Offensively, yeah. Can you elevate the passing game with a better running game? Yes. Can you elevate the running game with a better? Yes. So it's all relative in who you want to make the excuse for on a given week. But I will say this. Over the full sample size of last season, I haven't heard many people say this. I'm going to say it. The passing game was fucking better than the running game. And that's a problem in Philadelphia, especially coming off the Super Bowl season when they had one of the best running games in the history of football.
How much is that slanted how much of that is slanted because of how the defenses are playing you? You come off a year where you have a historic running year, and then obviously the defense has tightened up over the offseason to try and take that away. They are successful in it. In turn, you get a little bit of a better passing game. Still not enough to make up for the difference, obviously.
No. Well, yeah, everybody's going to adjust when you win the Super Bowl. But, the typical adjustment would have been, all right, you're not going to run for 2,000 yards, Saquon, but you're going to run for 1,500. That would have been nice. Cutting it in half, not nice. And a little bit more, but you get my point.
Yeah, it's close to half. Close enough.
Yeah. I'm surprised that so many people give the running game a pass because they don't like the passing game, which I get.
I don't think it's a pass. I think there's and this is just my feeling, and I might be wrong on it. I think it's just, I look at it like a clogged sink, John. Like they run the ball so much, defenses are taking away the run, and they don't pass high volume enough to create, the defense spreading out a little bit more, having to cover the pass. The defenses don't.
Well, and then that part of it is, and then that because it's more than just the run. Like Nick, and he's right, and he said everybody's fingerprints is on it, and certainly, the passing game could have been better. There's plenty of room. I'm not trying to say the passing game couldn't have been better because it certainly could have been better. So everybody had their fingerprints on it. But every NFL team, and you'll see it in the Super Bowl, the Seahawks and the Patriots, does things well. And, everybody likes to talk and use the word identity, which I hate, but I'll use it for this. Everybody's got an identity. What do you do well? What do you do well? Well, the Philadelphia Eagles' identity, we all know what it was, and it shit the bed for a lot of different reasons. Mainly, I would say, injuries to the interior offensive line would be the number one aspect. But that's life in the NFL, man. But they had so many negative runs. So many negative runs. And when you're 2nd and 12 instead of 2nd and even 7, it changes the whole complexion of the game. And even if you're talking about one of the high volume throwers where you're going to overcome 2nd and 12 more often with Matt Stafford or Jordan Love. I'm looking at Sean Manion. Look at those guys in those situations. Yeah, they're better, but those are not optimal situations for them either. And that's when mistakes come as well, because they're trying to overcome the negative plays. So I think the whole narrative about this offense is broken. I talk about quarterback evaluation being broken. I think the Eagles' offense analysis is broken. I truly believe it is. I see all these things, and there's a bunch of them out there, and they're speaking with conviction of what you're going to see with the Sean. I wrote about this on Sports Illustrated yesterday. They're speaking with conviction of what you're going to see from a Sean Manion offense. And, all the typical tropes that you would expect, the motion, the pre-snap, the yada, 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 the Shanahan McVay stuff. And I just said, you better hope they're freaking wrong if you're an Eagles fan. Because if he's coming in here with a predetermined mindset of what he's going to run, first of all, I don't think the Eagles would have hired him.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. But you're right. To your point, you're right. I agree.
And I go back to, and I brought it up on the show, I go back to Nick's first lesson in coaching, or at least he is from Larry Karras. He baited him. He baited him in the interview. He said, well, all right, what kind of offense are you going to run? And Nick took the bait and started to talk like those people and envision the offense that he wanted to run. And Karras slammed the table like Nick does now, probably where he got it from. He said, you don't even know what players you have. Why are you talking about what you're going to run? Like, why is this controversial? Like, you can't go, even Sean McVay completely changed this year out of necessity. That's why he's great. Anybody talking about Sean McVay before the season? Sean McVay's really into 13 personnel. Really going to go heavy in tight ends.
He's going to love his tight ends. It's true.
And a lot of these people, when it comes to film, are smarter than me. My film experience is, talking to assistants who are lucky enough to, them to teach me, and personnel guys. But man, I'm like, what? Larry Karras would throw you out of his office.
Well, we'll see what ends up happening with Manion. John, circling back real quick on the offensive staff under Manion. Let's do a quick rapid fire. All right. Stoutland returns, right?
I think so. I hope so.
Yeah, me too. All right, I'm going to put him in the stat returns column. Moorhead.
I'm going to lean. I'm predicting. Well, I did this yesterday, so I'm going to predict. I'm going to stay consistent. I think 2 guys are going, and I think Aaron is one of them.
Okay, so he's gone. Singleton.
I think he'll be back.
Okay, back. You talked about the running game being a problem. That is part of your run game coordinator there. Stoutland, Moorhead, Singleton. How about Jason Michael?
I think he'll be back.
All right, Jason Michael is back. Who am I leaving out here, John? I got Stoutland, Moorhead.
Leffler, I think, is gone.
Okay, so Leffler you think is gone. It's the second one. He's the quarterback's coach. Gone. That's kind of common, right? OCs a lot of times they want their quarterback coach. That's what it seems like. Yeah, I mean, that's
typically.
Kellen only got 2 names, and that was one of them.
Yeah. And then you might see some, quality control changes, things like that. That's what Kyle Valero was, coaching assistant. So But, it could be any of them, though. That's what I'm saying. You could frame it, and part of it is you got to have a guy. Like when I say it's just Sean Manion have a guy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He probably has a quarterback coach idea, right? I mean, you would think so as a former quarterback. But
You would
right.
think. You would think, but I don't know. So it's really hard to predict, but from all indications, he's going to get a few guys. So it's going to be a mix of, similar to what happened with Kellen. It's going to be a mix of the old guard and a couple new guys sprinkled in.
There you go. Good stuff there on the offensive staff. We will see how it fills in. John, when do you expect to have definitive news on the offensive staff? Is it one of those things that they'll kind of keep close and let it drip out like later in the offseason? How do you see it?
Oh, yeah.
Quicker.
Boy, last couple of years, it's been really late.
Yeah, real late. I remember last year. They did
but it'll trickle out. The position coach hires will trickle out. There'll be other things that don't even trickle out till they announce. They announce the whole staff at one time. So they announce, and I'm talking not only coaching, but also personnel. So they'll announce all the coaching stuff and personnel, whether hires or promotions at one time, and that's generally pretty late. But the information with the assistant coaches will leak out. The position coaches will leak out before they do that.
You think this week we'll have some names?
Not necessarily. Sometimes it's a long process. Sometimes it's a short process. If you have a name in mind, like Kellen with Doug Nussmeier, I mean, that's a fait accompli. Again, does he have names in mind? I have no idea. Are they acceptable to the Eagles? I don't know. Is Howie going to have to go out and get candidates? Like, it took him a long time to find Bobby King. They didn't have a guy. It depends on whether you have a clear-cut plan or you're going to gather a bunch of candidates to try to find. But my indication with Sean would be, I don't know. I looked at the Green Bay staff. Like, number one, these are all generally lateral moves, so they don't have to let guys leave. And as you've heard, Nick, when guys have gone on to be head coaches, you can't have anybody. Now, he made a few exceptions, lower level coaches. So you can't really look at the Packers coaching staff from last year and say, well, he can take the offensive line coach there to be that. It doesn't work that way. So, it's not a predictable market, is what I'm trying to say. Unless you have that long-term relationship like Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier, which does not exist here. But, so, I mean, Sean was the quarterback's coach in Green Bay, and they didn't have an assistant quarterback's coach. So there's no guy in waiting. And I don't know if the Packers, if they did, I don't think they've replaced him. So, it's like Jason Rabel was the passing game coordinator, but it's not like you can just go hire him as the quarterback coach if he wanted to. So it's not as easy as people think. When it's lateral moves, if they're under contract, you don't have to let anybody go anywhere.
Yeah, well, we'll find out what ends up happening with the offensive staff. We will keep you guys posted here on Birds 365 when we do get those updates. All right, final third segment here that I want to talk about. We have Les Bowen coming up here at about 9:20, so we got about 18 minutes from Les Bowen. We'll talk to him. Looking forward to talking to Les. He wrote an article about the Fangio thing on PHLY, so good stuff from Les Bowen. We'll hear what he has to say about everything this offseason, the Manion hire, Vic Fangio, and all the like. John, Philly Voice, another one of our buddies, Jimmy Kemsky, he did an award here thing, and he had a hot seat award for 2025. Both Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts landed on his hot seat award. All right. I'll read to you kind of what he wrote because I thought it was interesting. What Jimmy Kemsky wrote. Let me pull it up. Give me 1 second. He wrote this. Hot seat award, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. Sirianni was never in danger of losing his job one season removed from a Super Bowl win and having signed a new contract during the offseason. But if the team underperforms anywhere remotely close to the way it did in 2025, all bets are off. There's little question that Jeffrey Lurie can recognize how talented the team is to have underperformed the way it did, and he has nearly fired Sirianni in the past. Meanwhile, Hurts is going to be under heavy scrutiny in 26 like he has at other times in his career. As usual, he'll have another new OC to work with. In the past, Hurts has responded when he's been under fire. He has not really had 2 consecutive down seasons, at least relative to expectations. But if he doesn't have a bounce-back season, would it really be that surprising if the team considered other options? That's from Philly Voice's Jimmy Kemsky on the hot seat for Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. John, how do you view that coming into this season, the hot seat for 2 of the biggest names on the team?
Yeah, well, Nick is clearly on the hot seat. I mean, there's no plausible deniability anymore. There's no layered protection anymore. That's sort of how the industry works. So you have the scapegoat, and then if it doesn't work and you don't recover, you're gone. That's generally what it is. And, the same thing happened in 2023, and the Eagles recovered. But now, it's now pretty well known. Jeffrey was thinking, now everybody should have known. It took so long. Everybody knew Jeffrey was thinking about firing him after 2023. And then at 2-2, yeah, I think certainly it crossed his mind, but I don't know if that was quite as perilous as maybe some have made it out to be, but nonetheless, it's certainly. Well, like one thing I would say in Hard Knocks, like they have conversations about everything. If everybody heard some of the negative conversations, they'd be astonished and pissed off. So they talk about everything. So yeah, it's been broached and what it might look like. And that's with players as well. That's with everybody. But clearly the Eagles don't have a lot of patience and have a lot of expectations. And that is a bad recipe for a coach. Reach the expectations or you're going to deal with the impatience. So yes, he is on the hot seat. No question. And so is Jalen, but it's a little bit more, only a little bit lesser because of the financial impact. And it also, it's way more difficult. And I mean, getting to the point of talent over coaching, as I was, way more difficult to find competent quarterback play than to find the next head coach. Way more difficult. So from that standard alone, if you're going to judge the 2 of them, and they're both on the hot seat, but if you're going to judge the 2 of them, Nick's in the much hotter seat than Jalen Hurts.
And ultimately, if you think this became the Knicks last year, would that increase the seat for Jalen? Do you think they would move on from both? Because ideally, you would think if a new coach came in, I don't think he's going to give them 1 year with the quarterback, will they? I mean,
they'll move on, pretty quickly if they have to. I mean, they've already proven that as well. They will move on.
Yeah,
I do think people forget they tried to run it back 1 more year with Carson Wentz. They tried. That was the original plan. but they're not afraid, even though it is difficult to replace a quarterback. They will do it. I mean, they've shown that as well. But it is more difficult. That's the only. It's more difficult to find another quarterback than it is to find another coach. Well, you can hire your coach. I mean, you can find a coach. And I got a lot of respect for Nick, and more than most people. I think he's a good coach. A lot of people don't. But I mean, that's not an insult to him. You can find a coach. I can't guarantee you're going to find a quarterback. That is really difficult waters. As you're seeing, GM in Minnesota just lost his job because they made so many mistakes at the quarterback position. So just from the nature of how difficult it is to find a quarterback, you have to be really cautious about moving on from a guy who, by the way, it's crazy to talk about because he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory.
Who, Jalen?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But he's unique. I use that term all the time, and people don't like it, and people don't. They want to change, and they want to shift, and they want something different. I mean, all the people they want, coaches, players, haven't been as successful as the coaches and players here. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. Unless you want to go to Kansas City. And they're having a downtick in the cycle as well. But all these names and all these coaches you talk about and all these coaches you want and all these players, and for the Jalen haters, you have both camps, the extremes. I don't think there's any logic to the discussion. But for the Jalen haters, it's like all these people you talk about haven't been nearly as successful. Now he does it in a different fashion, a unique fashion. So what? You know, you don't have to do it. There's not anything in life. There's more than one way to do it. But the way the Eagles have done it is not aesthetic to a lot of people. And that creates complications, as you've seen.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if only it's the aesthetic part of it. I mean, I think at time, I mean, you lead the league in 3 and outs. I don't give a shit what it looks like. I mean, that's just not a good metric. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's all only aesthetics, but I do think that.
Well, I'm talking about the particular player. I'm not talking about the offense. I'm talking about, I mean, there's a million reasons why they led the league in 3 and outs, but number one would be the negative running plays of the numerous reasons. Because the minute you're behind the sticks, your percentages go down.
Joe, you know, before the Eagles won the Super Bowl the way they did last year, running the football, one of the things that you were on in the regular season, and by the way, I don't bring this up to try and make it look like an I gotcha. I agreed with you 100%. The modern NFL, the Eagles kind of defied the modern NFL when they won that way. You know, I mean, that's not a typical way to win in the NFL. Run the ball the way that they did, you know, beat teams in the way that they did, and then ultimately go on to win the Super Bowl. Now that is gone, and that, or at least that's in the rearview mirror, you talked about the margin for error being so small. Is there a chance that it's gone forever?
Well, the margin of error is never going to be anything bigger than small.
Yeah, but they had to get that type of success.
The small margin of error, the way they play, if they continue to play the way they play and play it efficiently, will remain small. So, I mean, yeah, to me, it's not a gotcha. It's not a contradiction at all. It remains small.
Well, remember,
it will always be small. But
they needed pretty extreme success to win that way.
Well, exactly. So, you know, and I've had discussions with people in that building about, and I've told this story before about all the offseason lists, and, you know, how could you put Jalen Hurts behind insert name. And I said, not a lot of people in this league, again, and I'm talking about the Sando list, the Fowler list that are talking to coaches and executives, not the bullshit joesfootball.com list. Those are irrelevant, but the guys talking to executives and coaches, not wanting, not placing, they're thinking about their teams. They're thinking about it from their framework. They're thinking about how they want to play football. And they're like, no, I want this guy. I'm going to put this guy ahead of this guy because for them, it makes more sense. To me, it's very obvious. Not a lot of people, and I say it all the time with coaching, and we just said, not a lot of people want to play the way the Eagles play. Because one, you got to build a certain way. They're not built that way. And if you decide to build that way, that's a multi-year process. Two, you got to find the players that can do it. Not easy to do. So everybody wants to.
Because the margin is so small, I think the question still remains, will they be able to do it again? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Well, the aspect of hopefully they learned it was too small. Hopefully they learned from that. They're too risk averse. They because of the success that they had, they went into the season pretty much like, well, if we don't turn the football over, we're going to win.
Yeah, remember the graphic that came out in the middle of the year that Sirianni showed in the team meeting?
And the bottom line is, if you don't turn the football over, you are going to be in almost every game. Almost every game. That's where I differ from the Eagles thing. They think they're going to win. I think you're a play away from losing. Whereas, if the ball doesn't bounce your way, if Jordan Davis doesn't block the field goal.
Yeah, right.
That's how I think of it. And that's how I thought about it dating back to the divisional round. We were this close to spending an entire offseason talking about how bad that passing game was. This close. But they won the game. They beat the Rams because of Jalen Carter just taking over the game in a big spot. And that's always how I've thought about the game, and that's where I think they're off base. The margin of error was astonishingly small when they won, but they won. And that clouds visions.
Which is going to be harder to do again. That's right. I mean, doing it once is hard enough.
Hopefully they learn from it. And that's, part of what Sean Manion will be here to do.
So you don't think that's much about the style of offense? You think it's more about the risk-averse approach?
Well, I think the style of offense is the style of offense because of the risk-averse approach.
Yeah, right. They can. Well, I mean, you can be less risk-averse, but still have Jalen Hurts, who, as you point out.
Well, I still think you build around the uniqueness of the quarterback, but you don't have to be that risk-averse.
Right.
And that's what Sean Manion, to me, is here to do. And we'll see if he can do it. But, yeah, I've always thought that way, even after they won. I rarely change my thing, let's be honest. But I think I evolve. Yeah, that's a big word. Because I'm an old guy that talks about analytics a lot and believes in that. Fourth downs, I believe in aggressiveness. I didn't always think that way. But when it comes to margin of error, it was always small. When they won the Super Bowl, it was always small. And when they disappointed this year, it was because, everything didn't go their way.
Yeah. It's good. John, you're hitting the stuff that I thought. I mean, Earl, I'm looking at my list I wrote down earlier when the Eagles had just been eliminated first week of the offseason. I wrote down a bunch of questions here for the offseason. But my first two, and I mentioned this on the show, these are my biggest questions of the offseason, are two things you just alluded to. One is, will Jalen Hurts be a dual threat or a triple threat, as you worded it again? Or is he, more out of that mode? Is that behind him? And 2, does the risk-averse offensive philosophy change? That's the 2 things I wrote down, 1 and 2, and I think they are the 2 biggest questions on the Eagles this year. John, we got Les Bowen coming up here. Let's get to 2 super chats. Dirty D, what's up, Dirty D? I agree with John. Usually if you have those numbers, it usually means your defense is bad.
Which numbers?
I'm not exact. He sent us at 8:48, so we were talking about, what do we have?
Oh, the 49, probably 100 passing yards.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you probably are.
Yeah,
you're probably behind a lot. You have to throw a lot to get back in the game. Yeah, that's the nature of it. That's why I always say people should be careful what they wish for. When you see these big numbers, I get it. People look at the end of the season and go, "Wow, this guy threw for 4,400 yards." And don't get me wrong, you have to have a lot of talent to throw for 4,900 yards in this league. But you also have to be in some bad situations. And it's just part of it. You don't have 4,900-yard passers on, 15-1 teams. Well, they play 17 games now, 16-1 teams. You're generally, if you're dominant, you're winning games usually by comfortable margins, and you're running the football a lot in the second half just to burn clock. So it limits your numbers, but people like numbers, man. It's tough narrative to combat.
It's true. Here's a second super chat here. Jason 18, what's up, brother? Thank you for the super chat. Dirty D as well. Appreciate both of you guys. Does it make it easier to put Sirianni in the hot seat because we don't know what his extension was? ? Seems like it was all on purpose. It's easier to move. I like that. I like that take there by Jason 18. Or that question, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, are we talking about, obviously coaches don't get paid as much as players, so it's easier to move on. So I guess I don't understand that the hot seat, it's easier to replace a coach than a player. I mean, quarterback, I shouldn't say player. It's way easier to replace a coach than a quarterback.
It did seem like they were trying to keep it like, now they always do, but there is, I guess, some instances of coaches where what they get.
Yeah, I mean, it came out what Flores got. Sometimes it comes out, sometimes he does. He's very highly paid. Don't worry about that. He's very highly paid. Very highly paid. Near the top of the market. So that's, but again, compared to a quarterback, that's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, right.
Veteran quarterback, obviously, I'm talking about. So yeah, money's part of it as well. Guys Jeffrey Lurie is taking dead money hit. He might take a dead money hit of $40 million for AJ Brown. He will take dead money. He'll take a $15 million dead money hit for a coach.
If he doesn't want the cash. Yeah, that's not going to stop him, folks. Anybody that knows Jeffrey Lurie, that will not stop Jeffrey Lurie. All right, good stuff, Jason. Appreciate the super chat, brother. Appreciate Dirty D super chat as well. We're going to talk to Les Bowen in a little bit. Hopefully, Les got my email. Let me text him. I think he should be all good. So just make sure.
Oh, he's having camera trouble. You should bear with him.
We did get the link, though. All right, let's see. We'll talk to Les in a little bit here on the show. Going to be interesting to see. John, 3 good segments so far. We will get to Les Bowen when he joins us. Just a quick question here, John. With the draft starting to loom, we're going to start to dive more into the draft on a daily basis. Maybe we'll make a segment that we do a daily update, maybe a daily position look or something like that. I will think of some things to do daily for the NFL draft as we lead up to it. But what is your early feeling on round 1, John? I know it's kind of how the board falls, but it does feel like it's offensive tackle time, doesn't it, J-Mac?
Yeah, but I've thought that way they've been looking for a Lane Johnson heir apparent this will be the 3rd year. So they've been thought process has been there for a while. Even to the point of the year they drafted Quinion at 22, I believe. the kid Pittsburgh drafted is if he was there, they would have picked him. Troy Fautano. Obviously it worked out for the Eagles, but the point is they've been trying to look at potential heir apparents, and they also, they've been greedy. They want a guy who can play inside, then kick out when Lane eventually retires, and that they thought Fautano could do that. And that's why you see a lot of Caden Proctor stuff early, try to replicate that big size they've had in the past, which again, but that's all like, are they changing the run game? Because if you want to go outside zone, you want to bring in a 6'7", 370-pound guy to
no.
Like everything changes, but I don't think the Eagles are going to do that. I mean, I think Stout's going to be back. There's some talk he won't be the run game coordinator. Like, this could be a shit show, man. We talked about our buddy Jimmy Kempski. He does that top 10 reasons for every team in the NFC East could be a dumpster fire. He does it every summer. Everybody enjoys it. Does a good job with it. This could be a dumpster fire next year. This really could. If AJ leaves, if Lane retires, this could be a fucking dumpster fire.
If AJ leaves, Goddard leaves, Lane, oh man, that would not be good, John. With a 33-year-old OC, we will find out what happens. I know another guy who's got an opinion on it. That's Les Bowen, the great Les Bowen. He's set to join us right now here on Birds 365. Let's bring him on right here. I just read his article on PHLY about the potential retirement of Vic Fangio. Les, I know you didn't allow Vic to retire. How you doing on a Tuesday morning, my friend?
I'm doing great, Zander. Thanks. How are you guys?
Doing well. Good to see you, Les. Glad you got the camera issues fixed. We're glad to talk to you. So let's start with Vic. When Vic came in, we all knew it was a short shelf life. The guy's 67. He's going to be 68 in training camp.
Right.
The Eagles know it's in that sort of year-to-year mode. He was talking after the Super Bowl. He might have walked away on top. It would be very difficult to replace him.
Well, especially at this time, with this timing. This didn't come up until a few days ago with Jimmy Kempski's report first. And, you can't replace him right now. I mean, there were 147 jobs open all over the league, and they've all pretty much been filled. And this would not be the time to do. And I think Vic knows that. I think we kind of found out about this after the whole thing was over. But it would. That's the thing. You knew coming in. You're right. You knew coming in that he wasn't going to be here 10, 15 years or anything. But you didn't know he was going to be this good. In fact, I remember when he was hired, there was a lot of discussion. Some of the other Fangio-style defenses in the league hadn't been doing that well in the last few years before Vic came here. And Vic had just one and done in Miami, left by mutual decision there. So we didn't have any – we thought that this guy would bring order out of chaos, but we didn't have any idea the defense would become the backbone of the team, which it has. And now the idea of him retiring is a huge deal. And like I said, the timing at this point in February, that's not going to work. So I'm glad that he apparently has reconsidered. The last reporting I saw was E.J. Smith and some other people were saying, that the Eagles think this is behind them now and he's going to just go forward. And I sure hope that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to your point about, I'm in the mentality of, look, even if it comes out of left field at an inopportune time, I agree with the Eagles. I'm lobbying to get this guy back at all times because I don't care what the timing is, Les. The replacement isn't going to be as good. You mentioned some of those. How many people have run Vic's scheme over the years around the league? The Xerox copy is never as good as the original, period. So, you live with the shelf life. You take the shelf life you have with Vic Fangio. That's where I am. And I'm like, all right, if I'll deal with the consequences once he decides to go. And you'll probably take a step back and you have to recover in a different way. But I got to take advantage of this shelf life. That's how I kind of see it with Vic Fangio.
Absolutely. But the thing is, John, and you know this, you guys both know this, when you change, unless you take one of his lieutenants, and the top one that everyone thinks is the top one, Christian Parker, just left to go to Dallas. Unless you take one of his lieutenants, you're going to be installing a new scheme with new priorities.
Yeah.
And that's a huge deal because they really have retooled in the image of Vic Fangio over the last few seasons,
right,
with all of the emphasis on linebacking, which has historically not been an emphasis here in 20 years. They've signed Zach Bond to a big deal. They drafted Jihad Campbell in the first round. They don't have, for instance, people were talking about bringing back Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz would not like this edge rush.
That's what I mean. If we look at the two contingencies, do they believe this scheme is right if they don't have Vic? Right. It was reported with Gannon, who would be that scheme, but then it was reported with Jim Schwartz, who really doesn't run anything.
No, Schwartz runs.
Maybe they can get Myles Garrett if they get Jim, though. That's my conspiracy. Maybe they're thinking about Myles.
But that would be with the money and everything. I don't know how in the world they would do that, but. We've been talking this offseason until this came up about a re-emphasis on rebuilding the offense. And you don't have resources to retool the defense right now, because it doesn't fit a new coordinator. That would be
I was surprised
with
the Jim stuff. I was surprised with the Jim stuff because, to your point, completely great coach, by the way, Jim Schwartz, but completely different style of defense. And he's under contract, so I'm not sure. Obviously, he's not happy about getting passed over.
Yeah. He had a hell of a year in Cleveland. And if you look at the options available in terms of, who's good, I think he's probably the best option out there. But like you said, and like I said, it's a different scheme. It would be really a huge change.
Yeah, which maybe shows you that they're not, perfectly, committed to Vic's scheme without Vic. We'll see what ends up happening. Les, I'll stay on the defense while we're there. If we do get the good news, which I'm in agreement with you, I saw the recent report from E.J. Smith. I think Vic will be back. He doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to come back to you a couple weeks later. And, once he's on the horse, I think he's going to be on the horse.
Right.
So if Vic returns, we got three big free agents, Les. You got Nakobe Dean, you got Jalen Phillips, and you got Reed Blankenship. Maybe not everybody would classify him as big, but those are three starters on that defense. Which do you think return, if any, Les Bowen, of those three defensive free agents?
Well, I think we have to be prepared for the possibility that none of them will.
Great.
I don't think there's much likelihood. It just depends on the market for these guys a lot, I think. I think a lot of the assumptions are, well, this will be a top of the heap contract at this position for each of these guys. I don't know. Nakobe Dean's been injured so much, they might have a shot at bringing him back just because it's, because nobody might want to invest a lot of money in Nakobe Dean. But I don't think they have a plan to bring him back. I think that's why they drafted Campbell. Phillips is a guy I would prioritize just because they don't have an edge rush. I know Phillips didn't put up huge numbers, but I thought he was an impact player. He's a guy that can play a lot of downs. He's young. I think he'll get better. I wouldn't pay him, Myles Garrett money or anything, but I would certainly. He's as good as anything you're going to replace him with, I think, in your price range. I would look at that hardest. Reed Blankenship is a nice player, and he'll leave a void, I think, leadership-wise and intangible-wise. But he was an undrafted free agent, and it's not like you want to break the bank for his ceiling is limited. He's not going to be a perennial All-Pro or anything like that. Again, what's the market for Reed Blankenship? I don't know. I think I would prioritize Phillips, but I think from everything I see, it sure looks like they're prepared to move on without any of the three.
The cap is going up from, I think, 279 to 303, somewhere 303 to 306. So pretty significant rise. So just to button this up, because we got to talk about the offense, but I'm with you with Jalen Phillips. I thought he was great. I thought he was great. I thought, he was a sort of the final piece of a puzzle, and it all fit together. I really think the defense got a lot better. So Spot Rack over the cap. I think it was Spot Rack did the market value, and they had 3 years, $52 million, so $17 million plus a year. To me, that's a no-brainer. I don't know how you get Jalen Phillips at 27 years old,
right,
at $18 million a year with the cap going up that much. Is there a walkaway number for you, Les? When it comes
I hadn't really thought about it, but maybe 20 a year. I don't know. It just depends on what's going to be out there. What can you do? Can you draft? You don't have a high draft pick in the first round.
Yeah, you got to get an edge rusher somewhere. If you
going to draft a great edge rusher in the 20s? It's happened, but it's not likely. Are you going to go out and pay a lot more for another edge rusher that you like better? I don't think you can just let him leave and go with what you have. That doesn't seem like an idea that I could support. I don't know what my ceiling would be, John. They want to do what's looming in the background here. They don't have a huge crisis if you just look at what the contracts they have now and what they can do, but they want to re-sign all these guys, or they say they do, all these young defensive players, and to new deals, and we don't know what those deals are going to look like. And
that stuff's so fluid though, Les, because last year, look, they want to pay Quignon, but they have time. Cooper, they have another year. Obviously, those guys are no-brainers. But what we thought about last year with Jalen Carter, look, they're going to bring him back. I don't think there's any question. But now I have some concerns with the shoulders and
do you give
top
Jalen
of the market?
$150 million?
Yeah, exactly. Nolan Smith, I don't even know if they're going to bring Nolan Smith back now.
Right, he did very little after he came back from the injury. I was disappointed.
And I thought Jalen Hunt looked better at the end of the season.
These deals, though, I agree that there are questions about several of these guys, but this is their MO. This is what separates them from, say, the Cowboys. The Cowboys wait until they have no other alternative and then pay an absolute
premium. Yeah, makes
no
sense.
Get it done early and pay a decent amount less than what ends up being the top of the market when the contract finally would come to, when they would have to do it. And if you put 4 or 5 guys, Tim Kalishaw in the Dallas Morning News wrote a really good column about this a few weeks ago. You put 4 or 5 of those contracts together, and suddenly you've saved an enormous amount of cap room over what the Cowboys do. Yeah. So that's a good way to work. But it makes it really hard to project, what you can pay, for us to project anyway, what you can pay Jalen Phillips or somebody like that when we don't know what they want to do with these other guys.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. Let's shift over to the offense. All right, you got Sean Manion. We didn't talk to you. Let me just, before I muddy it, what is your reaction? What is your response to the Eagles hiring 33-year-old Sean Manion to be their offensive coordinator?
Well, I'm in favor of it. Yeah, it's tricky in that he hasn't called plays, but they brought in Grizzard, who has called plays to help out. I kind of thought this would be the direction they would go. This is a Jeff Lurie type move, young, innovative, different. I didn't think you were going to see, a Nick Sirianni buddy like Jim Bob Cooter. I know they looked hard at him, but that's just, I think Lurie's seen enough of the hitch routes. And, I think they're going to. Now, the question is, you bring in a guy like Manion who doesn't have a huge resume and clout, and what is Nick going to do? Is Nick going to let him change everything? We saw with Kellen Moore that just because you bring in somebody who does various things, that doesn't mean the Eagles are going to do various things. I want to know for a fact that they're not running Nick's offense next year with maybe a little more variety in the play calling. I think that's a danger here. But this is the kind of bold, let's find somebody who's on the cutting edge sort of thing that Lurie likes.
I think the hard part for Nick would be would you let him less? I know Nick gets crap, but man, this guy's been pretty successful as a head coach. And now you got Sean Manion, who's never called an NFL game in his life. Sure, Sean, you can change my offense. And if we fail, by the way, I'm going to be fired as the head coach. You'll be fired too as the coordinator, but I'll be fired as the head coach. I don't know. I feel like
that's a very good point. That's a very good point. But I think they've had to have talked all this out with Nick, and made it clear to him that we're not going to watch what we've been watching the last few years. But we'll see how it works out. I mean, another scenario is they start off with all this new stuff and, it's Hurts isn't that adaptable and, theoretically there might be problems. The offensive line maybe still isn't fixed and it doesn't go well for 3 or 4 games. Does Nick just grab everything back? Is this written in stone that Manion is going to get the whole year to work through all this new stuff? It's going to be fascinating to watch.
It is fascinating.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we have you, Les, today, because I wanted to ask you that question, because you've been around Jeffrey Lurie a long time. And I think I'll say this from this hire, from my perspective, they sure branded it like it was Nick Sirianni's hire. I mean, they branded, they hammered that home. Now, from my perspective, I start thinking about the end of Chip Kelly and Jeffrey's convoluted description of why he sent Howie Roseman off to the other side of the building was basically, and I'm paraphrasing, and you can correct me because you were there, was basically, I have to see what I have in Chip Kelly. I have to have him this responsibility to see what I have. I see, it's not apples to apples, but I see a similar thing here.
That you have to give him enough rope to hang himself.
Exactly. That's exactly what I wrote. Yeah. Giving him enough rope to hang himself. Is that what's going on here? Because I think that's a bad way to do business if that's what's going on here.
It is a bad way, but I don't know what you do in this situation, John. It's a really odd situation. As you guys mentioned, Nick's been incredibly successful record-wise, but we all know this offense has hit the dead end. It's not getting any better. And A.J. Brown is not going to produce if you keep him around, if you try to run this back. And you have to do something. And if Nick, I don't know if this was Nick's idea, really. I know what they said, but they say a lot of things, You mentioned Chip Kelly. The one thing I'll always remember is right before that last season started in 2015, Lurie gave a talk on the sideline at NovaCare. It was like the last week of the preseason. And the quotes were just, there'd been a lot of stuff written about Chip's leadership style and people not getting along and not communicating. And Lurie just went to the wall with Chip is the most wonderful leader and greatest guy in the world and blah, 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 and it was all crap. I mean, none of it was true, and he didn't believe any of it, but he wanted to put that out there to get people to stop probing the problems. So I don't know what Nick's role in this hiring was. I think he had to be on board, obviously, for this to work at all. But his idea, I don't know.
I just focused on they branded it as his idea. So that means they're trying to put the spotlight on him. And if this doesn't work, well, then you have.
Oh, he'll be the scapegoat. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. But it will be, I mean, they're still going to have a good roster, I think. Lane Johnson's pending. That could change a lot of things. AJ doesn't buy into the new guy. That could change a lot of things. But if you assume those two pieces are back in functioning order, then there aren't a lot of excuses to not have a good year. I mean, I don't know what gets you fired this coming season. With Chip, it was a losing season after 2 10-6 seasons. The Eagles having a losing season at this point would be a heck of a thing. What
if they don't have Lane and if they don't have AJ?
Yeah.
I could see, well, I mentioned before you came on, I mentioned our buddy Jimmy Kempsky's Dumpster Fire series.
Yeah.
Which I always enjoy. You can come up with some reasons that they have a bad season. Now, you're right. Personnel, guys have to retire, guys have to be traded, and that might be unlikely. But I could see a path. And then, it's strange to me. And last year, we've both been around for a while. There's that natural, like Jeff Stoutland's 63 years old.
Yeah.
You're bringing in a 33-year-old offensive coordinator. If things start to go badly with no experience, and you have all these veteran assistants, and we don't know who's going to be back. There's going to be a couple new guys, but some of the core guys are going to be back. Maybe Jamal Singleton's back. Maybe Jason Michael's back. These guys have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
A lot of success. Even stuff like that. I think it is a bold move by the Eagles to go with Sean Manion. Very bold.
Yeah.
And they're signaling this guy's a natural. This guy's a future coaching star. That's what they're signaling by this.
Well, I think the people in Green Bay certainly feel that way. They were not happy to lose him at all.
Yeah, it's true.
They are not. It's almost it's a little bit of a similar situation to the Eagles in some ways. That there are a lot of people there a lot of fans that would love to see LaFleur, hit the road, even though he's had a very successful record. Yeah. They're sick. They haven't gotten to the Super Bowl and won it the way the Eagles have. So there are a lot of people who felt Manion was the brains of that operation.
That's always the way. People thought when they had a little success this year, little pockets of success. I don't know if you saw it, but I saw it quite a bit. People would say, "Oh, Scott Leffler's doing it." Yeah. And that's just the nature of it.
Like the backup quarterback.
Exactly.
Be the other guy.
So that part of it's baked in every NFL city, which is not always fair. But with the offense as a whole, and you brought it up a little bit, I think. Jalen Hurts is a unique quarterback. That's the word I use all the time. And I don't think he can run. I'm going to be blunt, Les. I don't think I'll phrase it this way because I get people upset. Why would you want Jalen Hurts to run a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan style offense the same way as why would you want Matthew Stafford or Brock Purdy running what the Eagles do? To me, it's as simple as that. I have a very unique quarterback. I'm going to build around that quarterback. And if Sean Mannion's the coach that people think he is, I think he's going to be exactly like Kellen Moore. He's going to try to do some different things, but he's going to build around the strength of the quarterback he has.
Yeah, I can say you make a good point. I would counter that with, like, look at Brock Purdy. Is he that different stylistically from Jalen Hurts? He gets he gets some yards with his legs.
Well, he's mobile, but
he doesn't have the greatest arm in the world. But you run a lot of different stuff with him. If the problem is that Jalen can't process stuff, which I don't really believe, then you have a huge problem going forward. He's 6 years in here. My point is this. Every year when they change a coordinator, we go through all this hand-wringing over all the different coordinators Jalen has had and all the hard time he's had trying to do all the 6 years in. He ought to be able to adapt. He ought to have seen everything by now. He's got to mix it up a little. Somebody's got to work with him. I don't know about various parts of the Shanahan McVay, wrinkles and routes and things so much, but somebody's got to really get him stepping up in the pocket, moving around the pocket instead of heading for the right sideline and flinging it out of bounds every third play. We're past that now. That doesn't need to happen anymore. They got to get that out of him. They've got to get him seeing things over the middle a little better. I think sometimes that's a height thing with Jalen. The offensive linemen the Eagles have are really huge, and he's not. But Drew Brees was a guy that could sort of dip and dodge back there and find the way to get the ball out. There has to be growth from Jalen Hurts. It isn't just about adapting to Jalen at this point. I'm a big Jalen guy. I like Jalen. I don't think he's, there are some people in the fan base who think that Jalen's, terrible and all this stuff. That's not the case, but he does have to grow. He does have to change.
Right.
I think defenses are very well attuned to the things that Jalen does well. And the running thing, that could have helped him last year if he was more willing to run. But in the long run, as he gets older and older and older, that's not going to get you, that 5 more good years. There has to be more. There has to be more to it. He has to develop a little bit in some of these passing concepts and pocket awareness concepts that so far have been lacking, if you ask me.
Well, you brought up Brock, so I'll say what's the difference, because Brock's pretty mobile. What's the difference to me for Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts? Well, Brock Purdy is, or has been early in his career, a timing-based quarterback. The ball comes out on time.
Yeah.
And more of an anticipatory thrower. Now, can Jalen Hurts evolve in that aspect? Sure, everybody can get better. Tom Brady talks about it all the time when it comes to trusting yourself, and he was a better quarterback at 42 than he was at 28 when it came to that kind of stuff. So the more you play, you can always get better and better and better. So I want to ask you this question. How much because a lot of it is Jalen, I think he's good at processing too. I think that's part of his game that's really evolved over the years. He's gotten better at that. However, too often he holds on to the ball when guys are open. Guys in the NFL, you're open a yard. And if you don't throw the ball on time, it closes really quickly.
True.
Is part of that just the risk-averse nature of this offense pounding into his head? Don't turn it over. Don't turn it over. Do they have to have a better balance and say, you know what, maybe occasionally a turnover is not the worst thing in the world if we're going to be a lot more explosive on offense?
Well, I would endorse that. I don't know. That's a great question, John. They were kind of in that mode in 2023 when things fell apart, and I don't think it was really the offense's fault that things fell apart. But for much of that season, they had a very explosive offense with more turnovers than they've had since. Last season it was apparent that was Nick's grail, was if we don't turn the ball over, we won't lose. Well, they got to the playoffs. They won the turnover battle 2-0, and they lost.
It's true.
That is not the holy grail all the time. Games happen where if you don't do anything with the opposition's turnovers, then it's not, and if you are going for it on fourth down and not making it, which is like a turnover, the effect is mitigated quite a bit. I would like to see him take a few more chances, but I really think, and I'm way out of my league here. I'm not an X and O guy, but I don't know that he has guys running open all the time. The way they run their offense, they depend on people to win one-on-one so much. I think if you schemed guys open, he could find them. And they don't do a lot of that. I mean, you look at other games and you see these. They sent two guys over here, and the safety went with that guy, and then they brought this third guy underneath, and there's nobody on that side of the field. When do the Eagles do this? I don't know. I think you're right to a point, but I also think they can do a lot more to make it easier for him. Part of their problem the last year or two has been depending on winning one-on-one battles that receivers, AJ primarily, are not winning.
They do a lot of one-on-one stuff. That's fair. And the Eagles believe that AJ's going to win, and they believe Devontae's going to win, and it didn't happen as much as it had in the past. That's part of it as well. Yeah. And that was built on the foundation of they did win a lot one-on-one. So that's why they played that way. At Les Bowen, make sure you follow Les on the X platform. Read him at PHLY. He has got a great Vic Fangio piece up, as Zander mentioned. Make sure you read him there. It's always fun to catch up. Les, who's going to win the Super Bowl?
I really like the Seahawks. I'm a little bit afraid that Sam Darnold will become Sam Darnold again.
Everybody's Sam, man. Poor Sam.
Well,
Sam's
it happened in the
biggest
playoffs
game
last year. It happened in the first playoff game. I feel bad for that Minnesota general manager because after I saw that playoff game that Darnold played last year, I wouldn't have. Now, I think they made the decision before that, but I would not have, said,
here's the thing. I know Kwesi. I like him.
Unless you just opened up a can of worms.
Yeah. My thing is, he not only chose J.J. McCarthy over Sam Darnold, he chose him over Daniel Jones and Aaron Rodgers.
That's true.
With a team that most people thought was ready to.
Right.
You can't survive. I love the guy. I don't like when anybody gets fired, but you can't survive that in the NFL. Those kind of options.
Oh, I agree. But with Darnold, we're talking about the game this weekend. He's done so well. I want to see him do it. I'm pulling for the Seahawks, but I just have that little bit of question. But I honestly don't think the Patriots are that good. I think
neither do I. I'm amazed.
Not anywhere close to the NFC this year. And I'll be really surprised if the Patriots are able to shut the Seahawks down the way that they did. Getting to play against the backup quarterback in Denver, it should be Denver playing in this game, frankly. If Denver had Bo Nix, there's no way that Patriots with Drake May did not play well. Mm-hmm. And that, it should be Denver, Seattle. It isn't. And I really think Seattle should win unless Darnold really, really messes up.
Les, thank you for joining in, brother. We appreciate it. As always, it's always good to talk to you. An honor. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon. All right, Les?
All right, guys. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, Les.
Yep, there's Les Bowen joining us right here on Birds 365. Great segment there from the great Les Bowen. We appreciate him joining in today. Johnny Match, a couple of minutes left on the show today. I thought Les, as always, had some pretty good takeaways. Just a couple minutes remain here, John. We do have some breaking news in the NFC East. Not Eagle news, but NFC East news. The Giants hired Matt Nagy, John. So the name that you wanted to become the Eagles OC has become the Giants OC. And I actually think that's a pretty good hire for them.
Yeah, so do I. The Giants are starting to go in the right direction. That's a shame, huh? It's been so long. They made so many bad. You get John Harbaugh, and he's going to make good decisions. I mean, it's going to be much tougher. Now they still got a way to go because they're starting from such a low point, but things are changing. Yeah, I don't understand all the angst, Matt Nagy. I just don't get it. Sometimes I don't get the thought process. And it's similar. And Les said it. And I'm not picking on Les because that's and I'm a Sam Darnold guy because I want to get it right. Basically, that's and he played well. I mean, let's be honest. There's 2 quarterbacks in the history of football that won 14 games consecutive years, and one of them Sam Darnold. Now, they've only been playing enough games for a short period over the long haul, but and one of the things that drives me crazy is he turns into the pumpkin in the big games. He never played in a fucking big game until last year, which he did turn into a pumpkin. But if you have that interior offensive line sieve, did he really turn into a pumpkin or –
I think it was the 2, right? It was the playoff game and it was the Week 18 game.
And they both went the same way, which was astonishing. And you have to blame Kevin O'Connell a little bit because after the Detroit game, which was Week 18, you gotta go max protect. You got to make an adjustment. He didn't. So I kind of blame the staff. Not that Sam's got to speed up too. Part of it's on him. I'm not gonna. But the whole point is, he never played in a big game because of the way his career went. What fans would consider a big game. But even before he played in big games last season, you heard that narrative. Well, he's going to screw it up in a big – he never played in a big situation. It's amazing to me how perception takes over the conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting, John. Good stuff, man. We will find out what happens. I like the Pats in the game. I know they're not as good of a team.
Well, I'm starting to waver because everybody's picking the Seahawks. And I get why, because the Patriots have not played well in the playoffs. Or Drake May has not played well. I shouldn't say the Patriots. He has not played well in the playoffs. He's got to play better. And everybody's picking the Seahawks. When the entire side goes one way, I tend to say, hey, what's going on here? Can't be as bad as that. But I do think they're a much better team. I'm amazed the Patriots have made it this far.
Yeah. John, good stuff, man. We appreciate you joining in. I don't know what I just added to the screen there. I got to fix that. John, your final thought here today. I thought we had some good conversations today about Vic, about the offensive staff, about the hot seat and whether that's relevant this year, which we both agree that it is. Your final thought here on a Tuesday edition of Birds 365, my friend.
Yeah, I think now that it's settled down, we kind of know that Vic's going to be back and Sean Manion's here, and that's what it's going to be. And yeah, the position coaches will be a bit of a story, but I think we start to shift gears and get back into personnel, free agency, and the draft. And that's the more important part of it. So I'm glad that it's shifting a little bit. We'll get back into talking about the players more because that to me is going to define the Eagles in 2020. What year are we in? 2026, more than the coaching stuff.
Yeah, we will find out. John, good show, man. I will talk to you tomorrow on Birds 365. Thank you, brother.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, all.
All right, thanks, John. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Good show today. Appreciate J-Mac. Appreciate Les Bowen. Appreciate all the great people of JAKIB Nation for being here today. The waters are muddy. Last summer we had this awesome off season, and don't get me wrong, it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing. But it was like the water is fine, the food tastes good, everything was, you were at a 5-star restaurant all summer. All right. calm waters, nice glass of sparkling water, the top shelf wine, a 5-star meal. We were eating good last offseason coming off the Super Bowl win. Feels like there's a lot of muddy waters right now in this Eagles team. I thought we talked about some good relevant stuff today with Vic Fangio. I think a lot of us, and me included, and I don't think it's an unfair thought. Like some coaches have this mentality that they're just going to coach forever type of thing, I mean, and I understand that because I can't predict what I'll be like when I'm 70 years old, but I've loved working since I was a young dude. I mean, when I worked at the pizza joint delivering pizzas from the day I got my license, I had the job. I worked as many overtime hours as I could. When I worked at the bar and I was a bar back, I worked 75-hour week. I love the work. I imagine I'll work until the day I die. Will it be lesser? Probably. Will I probably not work as hard at that age? Yeah, I would assume maybe. Who knows? You see coaches I think of like a Joe Paterno, died pretty quick after it came to an end. Coaching was his life. You look at a couple other guys who you can see doing that too. Bill Belichick. I mean, how old's Bill Belichick? He took a college job at how old? 70 years old? I mean, how old is Bill Belichick? He's 73, took a college job at 73 years old. So I think there was like a feeling, and the reason I say all this is to relate back to Vic Fangio, where I thought maybe Vic could be one of those guys, that he would want to coach basically until he was done. And maybe it's not the case. So I think Vic will hang it up, and now we kind of all have to envision, all right, the defense has become the focal point of the team the last 2 years, and they were good before Vic. Let's not act like the defense sucked. I mean, it wasn't great in 23 with the collapse year, but they were good under Jonathan Gannon. I know everybody loves to shit on Gannon. They were a good defense under Jonathan Gannon. But now we got to think about life after Vic Fangio and what that might look like. That was our defensive conversation today. Then you go over to the offensive side and you see Sean Manion. What kind of staff changes are they going to have? Is the quarterback coach in? Is the pass game the pass game, I should have mentioned that to John. He's already out. I mean, nobody talks about that. They hired Josh Grizzard. Parks Frazier was the passing game coordinator. Get him out of here. So what kind of changes do we have coming to the offensive staff? I think it's a good conversation. And then Jimmy Kempski, who is a well-respected Eagle beat reporter from Philly Voice. I like Jimmy. I read a lot of his work. I think he does a good job. He did a hot seat award, and he put both coach and quarterback on the hot seat. I think it's fair. I mean, I know I don't think you're ready. I don't think people are ready to go there yet in terms of Jalen, which, again, I understand. I mean, I think they've been a pretty successful team, and Jalen's been a pretty damn successful quarterback. But I do think Jimmy's reasoning makes sense. I mean, when you look at the talent on the team and when you look at where we believe they've fallen short of expectations, it's hard to sit here and I get there's fans who love Jalen. I don't have a problem for people that love Jalen. I really don't. I think your like for Jalen is grounded. It's well grounded. I don't think it's delusional. It's been very successful. 2 Super Bowl appearances. I get it. But when you also look at the way the Eagles have operated, when you look at the talent and the assets they've put on the offensive side of the ball, what they've done in the past, I don't think anybody would be all that surprised, if they did look for another option at quarterback. So it's going to be an interesting year in that it feels like there's almost more at stake. There's no more. Sean Manion could fall on his face as a 33-year-old first-time play caller. He very well could. He's not going to be the only scapegoat this year like Kevin Petullo was. He will not be. Okay? If Manion goes, Sirianni goes. And if Sirianni goes, the clock for Jalen Hurts goes much quicker. Much quicker. So there's a lot of interesting storylines here in the offseason. And then you add in this caveat. If this is Vic's last year, imagine a world, and I don't want to be too pessimistic this morning because I'm not in a pessimistic mood, but imagine a world where Sean Manion, it doesn't work out. The offense doesn't get all that much better. All right, Sean Manion would be fired. Nick Sirianni would be fired. Jalen Hurts, with the new coach who's not as loyal to him, would be on, I would say, the extreme hot seat. And then Vic Fangio is going to walk away. So you got a coach and a quarterback and an OC all in the hot seat. Sean Manion's on the hot seat before he even begins the job. And then you have Vic Fangio potential retirement. Like, dude, this is a crux offseason. And what I mean by that is there are inflection points for teams. And you can either make great decisions, which is hard to do, and just being a good decision maker doesn't guarantee you're going to have good decisions or have good outcomes, I guess, to your decisions. If you make great decisions, you can take that inflection point and use it for the positive and extend your window. Also, from that inflection point, though, if you don't make the right decisions, if things don't pan out the way you want, if you don't have luck on your side, well, guess what? You can also inflect the wrong way. And you can inflect into a mode where you're completely rebuilding this thing. I mean, imagine Nick's fired and Vic Fangio retires next summer. We're a rebuilding team. AJ would be gone at that point. Got to think Lane Johnson would be done. I mean, so we are in an interesting moment here, and I think while Howie Roseman has done good things, I would encourage everybody to. He doesn't deserve a pass either, and that's not to say I think Howie's a part of why the team didn't achieve expectations last year, because I don't, frankly. I think Howie did a good job. All right, I don't think he was perfect, but I think all things considered, he did a pretty good job. But it's no time to rest on your laurels, especially if you're Howie Roseman. I mean, you got to make decisions here like your fucking life depends on it. That's how I'd be operating. All right? That's how I'd be operating. So it's an interesting moment for the team, and I do appreciate everybody for being here. A lot of good conversation to have. Let me make sure I got my supers. Nyla, what's up, brother? The companion Manion. Oh, he'll need a companion. I should say this to John, but I know John will freak out at me. I do find it interesting. Does anybody remember the debate that I referenced Curtis in the chat. Does anybody remember the debate that me and John had yesterday in the first segment of the show, where he got mad at me or said I framed it wrong because I said the word setup when talking about Sean Mannion? He said, no, it's about experience. It's not about the setup. And then today I'm listening to him ask a question to Les Bowen, and he says basically verbatim what I laid out to him about the setup for Sean Mannion. Well, can you imagine if they have a rough patch, what it's going to look like for Sean? I'm like, what the fuck? That's what I said to you yesterday, John. So I got to bring that up to John tomorrow. I know he'll have something. He'll probably take another word and roast me for it in some way. I don't know. My words aren't good enough sometimes for J-Mac. It is what it is. I don't speak perfectly. I'm not a poet, all right? I'm not a fucking philosopher. I'm not an author, all right? I don't fucking speak perfectly. I don't type perfectly, all right? That's partly why you love me. So John will take my one word, and then he comes back and uses the same damn thing to question Les. I'm like, John, you got to be fucking kidding me. I mean, you got to be kidding me. It is what it is. It is what it is. All right. All right. Good stuff here. Zacrates. Thank you, M. Reyes. Good to see you, brother. All right. All right. Jason. Here's Jason. Jason, holy shit. What do you have? J-Mac's name tattooed to your forehead? Is that what you had under the Hurt season hat, Jason? He's a writer. It's innate to correct you. Shut the fuck up. That's that classic writer mentality. Everybody else is wrong, and only we're right. If you don't write it my way, you're wrong. It's like the grammar put. You know when you were a kid in grade school, and like there was the student in class who would say, "Teacher, make sure you check the homework because I did it perfectly last night." It's like, shut the fuck up. The grammar police. All right. I know. I didn't use the exact perfect verb to get my sentence across. Forgive me. Forgive me. All right? I mean, holy shit. You gotta be, could have been. All right? Lock me up. I've been mistyping and spelling. Yeah, me too. It is what it is, brother. Going to be a fun year. We went into 24 thinking we were trash. Put up or shut up. Garrett, it's a great take by you. It's a great take by you. I agree. Zander, your ADD moments help too. ADD is a superpower, Big Mike. You know, they created a school system, Big Mike, a long time ago. It was Rockefeller. Okay, this is the guy who got rich on oil. You know, and then he created the school system. Does everybody know this story, or is everybody not privy to this? Rockefeller creates a school system. You know what he said? Like, we need a nation of doers, not a nation of thinkers. We need a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. And he creates a school system. And everybody inside the school system, what are they trained to do, Mike? To work for the corporations, to work for everybody, to get in line. All right, Mike? I don't want to get in line. If that means I have ADD or ADA, whatever you want to call it, then so fucking be it. So fucking be it. I don't care. All right? Look at B Million crying. Zen, you've been trying. B Million. Shut the fuck up, B Million. Go somewhere else then, Gooner, on your anonymous account. Go somewhere else, you nerd. Nobody gives a fuck about your opinion here. People are watching my show. People aren't watching your show, B Million. Nobody knows who the fuck you are. You've been thriving on this. Oh, have I, B Million? Have I? Do you have the recipe for exactly what I do, why I do it, how I do it, and when I do it? Is that right, B Million? More like B fucking Penny. How's that? How's that? B Penny. B Million. B Penny. That's what you are. B Penny. Here's my boy, Ro Philly. What up, Ro? Good to see you in here. Z, I had a take yesterday. I love a take. It was about trading Bowen. Dude, you must have heard. Did you hear me say that? Because I mentioned that. I got ripped for it, which is fine. I got ripped for it because I understand that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I actually let me read your whole comment. It was about trading Bowen while his value is the highest and making room for Dean and Campbell. I love Bowen, but I'd rather move on from a guy a year early than a year late. Yeah, Ro, I don't know if you heard me or we both were thinking the similar things here, but I said this a couple times so far this offseason. Everybody said I'm crazy. John said I'm crazy. Jeff Kerr said I'm crazy. Cilio said I'm crazy. The chat said I'm crazy. I don't think they should do it, to be clear, Roll Philly. But I'll say this to you. I completely understand that thought process. Like, you have a young player and a 30-year-old. Bond's 29, so he's not 30 yet. I don't want to age him. But you do got a 30-year-old backer. Like, I get it. He's good, but football moves quick, you know? So I don't know. I understand the thought process, Ro. I don't think it's likely, though, man. All right. Xander, if we punt in the year, why not? We're not punting the year. That's why. Here's B Penny. You always claim, so you come in my chat box. Ready? I love this type of person. You come in my fucking chat box. You bark at me. And if I bark back, I'm the bitch. No, you sit the fuck down, motherfucker. If you come in my chat box and you want to talk to me about something, I got every right to fucking roast you, bitch. I can cry in your chat. If you answer, you're the bitch. I'm the anonymous account. I should be able to roast anybody. Shut the fuck up. Dork. Here's Carter. Zander, do you trade Bowen if for no other reason than Vic is gone next season? No, I'm not trading Bowen yet, man. You got to go for it this year, Curtis. I get it, but you got to go for it, man. You got to go for it. You can't act like you're about to have a bad year, you know? You got to act like you're about to have a good year. And getting rid of Bowen would insinuate that you think a rebuild is coming. I don't think that's a good thing to insinuate. Not only for the actual team, but like, what message are you sending to the team? What message are you sending to the fan base? What message are you sending to the new offensive coordinator? What message are you sending to Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts? Getting rid of Bowen, I get it. I brought it up first, and I got ripped for it. It is what it is. So, no throat coat, but I might need some. You're gonna need some cough drops. That's all right, Catch. That's all right. Here's Roll. No, I honestly didn't hear your take, but I was getting good to know. I got ripped for it too, Roll. We band together, Roll. The band of brothers. All right? The band of brothers. We roll together. We get ripped together. It is what it is. Zander filled up the swear jar. Yeah, my swear jar is pretty big here. No doubt. I come here for John. All right, well, John fucking left, B Penny. Dweeb. Here's Brandon. Imagine Cody. I don't even cry about that dude anymore. Here's Rasputin. Rasputin, you've had a lot of good comments this week. I don't know if you're new to the channel. Are you Rasputin? Because I've seen you a lot recently. I kind of feel like maybe you're a name change. I feel like you've been in here consistently recently. I don't know if you're new to the channel or you are a frequent visitor. He says, what's under more pressure, Hurts this year or Lane Johnson shattered foot? I'm about to take the foot. I'll take the foot. All right. I'll take the foot. Chillsy, B Penny's too close. Nah, B Preston's a legend. All right. B Preston's a legend. Rasputin's found you after WIP. Appreciate you being here, man. I appreciate it as always. All right. It's good to have a good community of Eagle fans in here. We try and be honest. All right. Try and always be honest. He said, you should have seen how bad I got ripped. If AJ leaves, you're drafted wire. And everyone acted. Roll, that's because how long have I been telling you that people on Twitter are morons? How long have I been telling you that, Roll? Eagles Twitter is a bunch of morons. That's where B Penny hangs out. Bunch of morons. All right? I told you that, man. I told you that. Where is Pump? Where is Pumper? I haven't seen Pump today. We need a Pump chat to come in here and spice the chat up a little bit. All right? We need that. Here's my boy, Too Focused to Fail. I like that name. Too Focused to Fail. It's a good mentality. Zander, let's get real. I look at the A.J. Brown situation as a relationship where one party is shown every reason why they don't want to be with you, and we look like the one begging, saying, don't leave. I can't relate. I can't relate. I don't know what you're talking about. And when it comes to that setup, you know, I don't know what you're talking about. Sounds like B Penny again. I don't know all these references to B Penny this morning. Hey, B Penny, you're getting popular. Congratulations. B Penny, look, Mom, we made it. Zander's talking about me on the show. Mom, call your mom. Call your grandmother. Call the family. B Penny, we made it. Look, Mom. Zander acknowledged me. Look, Mom, we made it. Woo! Woo! I can't relate. All right. All right. So good stuff. Good shit. Good shit. Zander, go to the draft. Is it in Pittsburgh? Is it? Oh, yeah. The draft's in Pittsburgh. Maybe I will try and go. Pittsburgh. It's like, what, a nice 5-hour drive. Pittsburgh draft. Let's see. April 23rd to the 25th in Pittsburgh at Acrisure Stadium, or Acrisure, however you say that name. I'm not sure how you say that goofy name. I liked Hines better. All right. Does anybody agree? I know we're not Pittsburgh fans here, but anybody agree with me? I think I liked Hines Field better. Or is it still Hines Field at Acrisure? I don't know. Who knows, dude? I don't keep track. I don't keep track. That'd be pretty good, though. The last hosted the draft in 1947. Wow, it's a long time ago. Almost 80 years. Is that right? Almost 80 years. Good stuff. Maybe I will head. Maybe I will head over there. Shapiro will get me. Now, Shapiro will be wearing his Steelers jacket because he's an opportunistic governor like they all are. That's all right. I appreciate him coming on the show. The Duncan in Philly. The Duncan, they know me up there, man. They love me. I'm there every day. I love Duncan. Duncan haters are like a very specific crop of people. You know? Oh, I don't drink Duncan. Duncan's gross. That's because you're a beta bitch. Coffee's too strong for you. Oh, you couldn't handle it. You couldn't handle the heat. You guys ever seen the video of, what's that guy's name? Damn, what's that guy's name? Is it Joey Diaz? It's Joey Diaz. Joey Diaz, Duncan. You type in on Google right now, or when the show ends. Joey Diaz talking about Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Joey Diaz, Dunkin' coffee. And listen to him talking about that Brazilian bowl, baby. That's how I feel about Dunkin'. Here's Frank from Philly checking in with a super. What up, Frank? Bro, I'm working right now, effing laughing my ass off. Zander on a roll today. I'm with you, Zander. Loving the show. Frank, appreciate you, brother. All right, thanks for being here. Joey Diaz, funny. Yeah, he is. He's a goat. He's pretty hilarious. Flex, is it your birthday, dude? Is that right, Flex? Oh, your birthday's Friday. Let's get a happy early birthday for Flex. Flex, I hope to see you in here on Friday. At least for a minute, I'll give you a nice little happy birthday. All right? Wish you a happy birthday on Friday. You know, when I grew up, and maybe my dad is a curmudgeon, he used to say, birthday, it's another day in the week. All right? You're a man. You got shit to do. You got things to accomplish. You got places to be. All right? You got a business to build. You got work to do. You got real life. All right? Birthdays are for kids and for women. All right? That's what my pop used to tell me. And I used to say, I think you're right, Dad. I don't give a shit about my birthday anymore. All right? Another day in the week. Everyone wish Low, happy birthday too, brother. Appreciate all you guys for being here. You said it right the second time. Acrisure, is that what it is? Ketchup Field is better. That's good, Ketchup Field. You know, I haven't been eating Heinz anymore. Has anybody changed up their ketchup? I haven't been eating Heinz anymore. I go for the, you know, I know it's kind of cheesy. I get the Primal Kitchen. It's like double the price, but, and they sweeten it with honey. I'm like, all right, it's a little better for you than sugar. You know, I try and cut out the sugars and the bullshit in your life. Maybe you get more energy like me. Say there, Catch. Stick with Heinz. Too much sugar, Catch. Yeah, I don't want any fructose. I don't want any high fructose corn syrup or any of that crap. All right. Hollywood says, I never do work. Hollywood, good for you, brother. It's not how my brain works, but I respect you for it, man. I respect it for you. Everybody's got to do what they got to do. All right. Just like I don't believe that all of your prescriptions for life are my fix. I don't believe that my prescriptions for life are your fix. All right. I'll try and always be true to that. Here's Too Focused again. Zander, let's talk about how aggressive we have to be to land a cornerback 2 in free agency and a safety. I feel like we can retain Jalen Phillips if we trade AJ for Max and give away a pick. Whoa, 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 whoa. What do you, bro, what do you have us doing here? You got us paying Jalen Phillips and trading for Max Crosby? You got us signing Jalen Phillips, trading for Max Crosby, getting rid of A.J. Brown, signing a cornerback 2, and to say, dude, you got us building the Avengers on defense. And then the worst offense in the history of offenses. I mean, the offense was already ranked 25th, and they had A.J. Brown on the field. Now we got no A.J. By your metric, Too Focused to fail. We got no A.J. Brown. We got a stacked defense. We got a new corner, a new safety, Jalen Phillips, and Max Crosby. Whoo, baby. That's a lot of defense. Remember, the offense was worse than the defense last year. Should we focus a little bit on fixing the offense? I don't know. Curtis says, Zander, I like it. All right. Yeah, I like a full defense focus. Jalen and Nick are here. Offense will suck anyway. Maybe, man. Maybe. Jimbo says, we got to run the ball again. If they can figure that out, we have a shot at another run. I agree, but it's not that easy to figure out. And I don't think it's all on Sean Manion, to be clear. I mean, if you have a great offensive line and your offensive line that you're paying buku bucks to, can't block people, or they struggle to block people, like, I got bad news. Like, Sean Manion could be the greatest offensive coordinator the league has ever seen. If Cam Jurgens gets walked around again like he did on half his plays, and Landon Dickerson, largely can't move, which, by the way, I'm expecting to continue. Does anybody keep up with his, I got on my Instagram. I don't use Instagram much anymore, but when I do go on there, how the algorithm gives you the people you follow. Landon Dickerson's wife, I mean, she's got that guy doing more work at home than he does at his job. I mean, he's fixing this and doing this and blinds and basements and doors. I'm like, all right, I get it. It's nice to have a handy guy husband, but let the guy heal. I mean, his job is how you buy all that shit. I mean, holy moly. Let the guy heal a little bit. Let the guy heal. Dude's got a bum knee. He's walking around his house fixing doors. I'm like, hey, man, that guy needs those knees. That guy needs those knees. All right. Jurgens' back is more shot than ICE protesters. That's pretty funny, but Rasputin, you're going to upset some people with that one. Hey, ready? Here comes Secunda. Dude, it is death, taxes, and Secunda when somebody mentions anything that is remotely conservative. Secunda will emerge from the ashes. Get ready. ICE got referenced. Here comes John Secunda. Give it a minute. He'll be here. All right. Senior Bowl was awesome. Did you, you didn't go, did you, Roll? I did catch some of it, but I was doing a bunch of shit this weekend. Focus, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think we could use a monster. I don't think Jalen Phillips classifies as a monster. I think he's a good player. You know what? I put my number at 20 million, and even that might be a little high. I'm not of the belief that Jalen Phillips is a must sign for the Eagles. Now, I also don't believe it's like, okay, let him walk. Nobody, you don't need to replace him. What we have after Jalen Phillips is not good enough. But I think when you go into an offseason, you explore every available avenue. And if I look at the edge rusher spot and you explore the available avenues to you, you have like Phillips. You could trade Phillips you're going to have Hunt and Nolan back. You could do that. That's fine. Or sign Phillips. You could look to trade. You could go big splash name like a Max Crosby. Now, that would be hard. You'd have to give up very significant assets to get Max Crosby. That could be a name, or I don't want to put Myles Garrett out there. I don't think he's going anywhere. But again, a trade for a name could be an option. And then you probably have another free agent. I don't know who's out there. Like, is a guy, I think I saw somebody comment at Chason. Yeah, Rasmussen. Was it you that commented at Kavion Chason, or however you say his name? Kayvon Chason. Maybe he's an option. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's avenues there. Yeah, I mean, look at this. Gary says AJ and Nolan for Max Crosby. So then you have Max Crosby, Jalix Hunt. Is that too thin? I don't know. Assuming that if you trade for Max Crosby, you're not going to pay Jalen Phillips. Yeah, CZ. See, you're on to it here. CZ says, Zander, with the extra cash teams got this year, massive cap increase. Teams will overpay big time. I think we're getting a third comp pick for Phillips. He does qualify for a comp pick for us, right? Even though we traded for him midway through the year. I really should have asked John that. Does he qualify for a comp pick? I agree. Hunt's going to keep getting better, but still, that's only two names, Gary. I mean, you kind of need some depth at edge rusher. They're not going to play every snap, no matter how good they are. I'm not sure. I guess Myles Garrett, who plays probably most of them. Trey Daniels says the girl at Wawa told me TJ Watt's getting traded. I would say there are a few things as untrustworthy as the female clerks at Wawa. There are a few things as untrustworthy as the female clerks at Wawa. I don't know if that's the right word for them, clerks. What are they called? It's just clerks, right? I don't know. You tell me. Zan, do you think we fucked up? Yeah, but Jim, they had to make a decision, dude. Like, at the time, I understood it. So I'm not going to go back and play hindsight 2020. You know what I mean? Sounds like you said the same thing. I was okay with that first, but now it sucks. Yeah, it sucks. But I trust them Wawa grannies with my life. That's a bold statement there. Hey, Gary, I know you're not in PA anymore, or I know you grew up around here. I don't know, man. Northeast is no joke. Those Wawa grannies, I don't think they can be trusted. Sandwich artist, there you go. That's a good one. Cashier, there you go, Theo. That's probably the right word. All right. Too Focused has some good comments there. I like Tank Bigsby. I think they need to change his jersey number. Change his jersey. Like that's problem number one, right? With Tank Bigsby. Guy needs a new jersey number. I don't even remember what he was. What was he, like 39 or something? I need another cup of Brazilian bold. Look good, play good. That's the truth. All right, I'm out of here, guys. Good show today. Appreciate everybody being here. Hit the like button. Beat Penny. You need a day off, my guy. Take a day off. You go back to the drawing board. It's all right. I won't judge you anymore. We all have bad days. All right, I've had my bad days. They come. Very few and far between for a guy like me, but they come. All right, I won't act like they don't come. Maybe once a year, once every 5 years, or here and there. Go back to the drawing board, take a look in the mirror, wash your face real good, give yourself a nice scrub, brush your teeth maybe. I don't know if you've brushed your teeth recently. Do what you got to do and then come back strong. All right, B Penny? By that point, you might be B nickel, all right? Or B dime. It might be one of those. All right. Love all you guys. Hit the like button. See you next time, everybody.
EAGLES. Eagles.